Hello, Jeffrey.
Hey, Dor. Good news.
Go on.
I have a special guest on the other line that I'm going to patch in. Okay? It's going to be a surprise.
How exciting.
Okay? It's a friend from our past. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Ready? I'm going to patch him in right now. Hey, Micha, are you there?
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Ah, Micha. This is so good.
Oh, pleasantly surprised, are we, Dor? Can we do that again?
No. Why?
Jeff's gonna have a mental breakdown.
My name's Jeff. I'm calling in from California.
My name's Dor, and I'm joining you from London.
Out of 16 million, we are 2.
2 freaked out Jews.
All right. To our audience, let me just tell you. Micha is our friend, one of our closest friends. He was in our Garin that we talked about. He was in the army with us, and he has a very unique skill of getting under Dor's skin and mine, but mostly Dor's.
I think it's mostly Jeff, actually.
I don't think me and Dor have any antagonism.
Really? You think that you get under my skin?
I purposely... It's so charming to get under your skin.
Explain.
I don't know. You try hard. It's cute.
Well, you're not under my skin right now, so I'll let you know that.
All right.
I'd like to add that you mentioned he was in our green, which means that he lived with us in the same house.
He was in the same army unit as us. We spent every day together for the years we were in the army. And one thing I will say about Micha is that it was such a pleasure doing patrols or guard duty or stakeouts with him, because I swear we never, ever, ever ran out of things to talk about. You would play these random games with me, like interview each other for jobs. We would just do job interviews for each other. Like sometimes you'd be the employer, sometimes I would be.
You know what was a funny game that I play with my daughter is the song made up or real? And then you sing a song.
All right, let's hear one. That's a funny game. I am going to play that with my kids.
So I told my daughter, I was like, is this song real or made up? Because this is my United States of whatever. Da, 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 da. And she didn't think it was real because it sounds ridiculous, but it's real. Can you cut all this out? I don't even know what I'm talking about.
No.
We should probably add that Micha is American, but he lives in Tel Aviv at the moment.
Oh, yes.
Let me, just a quick history about me. I was born in Israel, but I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I moved to Israel when I was 18 with Dor and Jeff. And then after the army, I fell in love and married a kibbutz member. I left Sasa in July, right before the war started. And all of Sasa right now is living in Ma'agan, which is a village near the Kinneret. So it was kind of good timing because they're all living in a hotel for 2 months, which sucks.
Yeah.
So.
Do you still go and see them, Micha?
Donna wants me to see them more than I do. I've never gone to see them. There's a stress in Ma'agan that I'm not so crazy about. Just the way people talk is a little bit not easy. Hard for me to explain.
Well, they have been moved from their houses, so can't really blame them.
They're literally war refugees. They're displaced refugees.
I don't blame them. I totally understand. I'm sure if I was there, I'd be the same way.
Of course. So this is actually a good segue. It leads me to my first question to you, Micha. During the height of the war, not that the height of the war is over, but in the early stages of the war, what was it like going to those bomb shelters when the rocket attacks were happening over Tel Aviv? Because I'll tell you, often it's something that I don't focus on because it doesn't seem that there's aren't casualties happening in mass from Tel Aviv bomb shelters. So I was fascinated to hear your account with your daughter, your family, what it was like going into these bomb shelters in Tel Aviv during rocket attacks.
Okay, I can talk about this for 3 or 4 hours, so stop me when it gets boring. It's probably not so exciting topic, but 5 a.m. October 7th, Tel Aviv, I was running on the beach, and I was passing 3 Arabs on bikes, and there was I was scared of them because they were in a big group, and they were being very violent towards one of this person tried to pass them on a scooter, and he pushed the biker. I think they were all in one group. And can
I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So you're on the boardwalk in the Tayelet of Tel Aviv?
Yeah, exactly. It was really dark.
It was nighttime or daytime?
It was 5 a.m, so it was still dark.
What you're saying is a group of Arab Israelis, and they were on bikes.
Yeah, they were Arab Israelis, as I assume.
Young men?
Yeah, they were 18 to 20.
And do you think they were up all night or just waking up?
I don't know. They were not just waking up. They're not doing exercise. They were doing shenanigans, as one would say. And anyways, so the scooter guy pushed the biker guy, and the biker guy got angry at him. So he pushed him down onto the ground, and as far as I could tell, maybe stabbed him or was just beating the shit out of him. But it was like real violence. I was scared that I was going to get hurt because I ran past them, and I was like, oh shit, maybe they're going to see me. They're like committing some sort of crime or some sort of violence. I'm scared of them anyways.
Was for what you could tell, was the scooter rider Arab Israeli, or is he Jewish Israeli, or you don't know?
Hard for me to tell if they're Arab Israeli or Arab Palestinian or whatever, but that's how my morning started, and
you could tell they were Arab by their accents.
Yeah, by their haircuts, by their clothes, by their outfits, by how they were talking. And they were talking Arabic, so, I mean, no doubt.
That's a giveaway. That's a giveaway.
It was just, there was violence, and I was scared that I was going to get hurt, so I, like, ran away. And that's how I started my morning, because I was like, it just started tense. I'm really curious if they knew or if they didn't know. I don't know.
If they knew or didn't know about October 7th was about to unfold.
Yeah.
What time did October 7th unfold? 11 a.m.,
No,
right?
no.
Was it earlier?
It started earlier. It started around 6:30 or 7. Because I heard it. Well, I don't know. It started around 6:30. The rockets started around 6:30 or 7 over the Merkaz area, over the central Israel. I don't know when it started in around Gaza, but around Tel Aviv it started around 6:37. I remember because I was hearing sirens, and I was like, oh shit, that's like there's like a lot of ambulances. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. And then I heard like a lot, like very heavy things dropping, and I was like, oh, the construction sites must be dropping a lot of like materials, and there's ambulances. Like, I had no idea what was going on. People were like looking at each other, and there was a lot of tension. And then as I was getting closer to my house, I heard like a real siren, like Seva Adom. And I was like, okay, I better get inside. There was a huge boom. I heard the boom. I was outside for the boom. It was really uncomfortable. It was scary. I got inside. People were like crying a little bit. This wasn't my bomb shelter, by the way. There was this one girl that was like hyperventilating and crying, blah, blah, blah. And then
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. You came back from running.
Yeah.
You went inside to your building.
Not my
that
building.
You live in?
No. I was still running. I went in. I was maybe half a K away from my building, so I went into another building that I didn't know.
A random building.
Yeah.
And so your wife, Donna, and your child, AR, were home.
Yeah, I think they
Still.
slept through the first alarm. But I was hearing alarms all morning, but they were like kind of far away. But the first rocket that hit Tel Aviv hit 3 houses away from my house. And then I was going to the store after the whole event. It was like, I guess 9 in the morning or 8:30 in the morning. I went out to go to the store to go get food because we thought.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, Micha. I'm sorry.
What? Is it boring?
I understand.
It
So,
sounds boring.
No, it's
to
not.
me when
It's
I
not boring at all. It's not boring at all. It's super interesting.
All right.
So you went to the random building,
Mm-hmm.
and then from the random building you went home. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I went home.
And
I saw Donna and
you got home.
And we're like,
Yep.
We opened the news and we saw 40 people, maybe more, were killed in the South. And Donna's like, this is really, there was like 5,000 rockets, or I don't know. There's like thousands of rockets. And Donna's like, this is not normal. And I was like, 40 people. I was in denial. The whole first day, I was like, you know, the army will get there. They'll take care of the situation. Like, everything's fine. I didn't want to consider what could happen. I was just like in denial, and I was like, fuck it, like everything's fine.
I think you're not unique in a lot of people, which I called that day, said, are you sure it's just a bunch of rockets? You know, it's not going to be that big.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like all of Israel was sort of naive about the Hamas up until that point, because the Hamas weren't really doing anything for years. And also, they kept stopping rocket attacks. Like, there would be rocket attacks from Jihad al-Islami, and the Hamas would like stop them. So I don't know why Israel had this conception, but as far as I understand of the situation. Israel even
Micha,
pulled the
you're a
army
chess
away.
player, right? You're a chess player. Isn't this like weren't they playing some sort of what's a chess move like this? You know, and you put your bishop into the corner and you like he's latent.
And I'm just gonna disregard that. I don't know.
Okay.
That's not a real thing. Not a real thing at all.
Under my skin.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Anyways, wait. So I just want to finish. So I went to the store to go get. I think I was going to get salmon, or I don't know what I was gonna get. I was gonna get some food because we were scared the stores are gonna close once it became apparent that this was serious. And then there were Arab Israelis working in the store. They were like the cashiers. And I wasn't sure if they hated me, if they were going to be violent towards me, if they were scared of me. It was a really awkward situation. It was like October 7th. The Hamas were calling for jihad against Israelis. And there was a lot of rockets all day, rockets. And like I was like, oh, by the way, could I have some salmon? It was just like an awkward like, do you still work here? Are you still friendly? Are we still cool? Or like, do you hate? Like, what's going on?
Well, I think this touches upon obviously, and we should acknowledge that there hasn't been any real issue inside of Israel between Arab Israelis and. Like there was over a year ago when there was a bit of sectarian issues.
I know the Arab Israelis have been great.
Yeah, and a lot of Arab Israelis, they work in hospitals, they treat people. There's a lot of mixed cities, and there hasn't been any issues this time. I think this is interesting, but I think it's even if there is no issues, people are human beings, and they are naturally going to be scared. I think that's what you're saying, Micha, that even though, like, hey, I'm not seeing anything on the ground, and this is why this conflict is so complicated, people are afraid. And when you're afraid, you stereotype. That's what happens. And so it's a completely natural reaction, even though it sounds like maybe to people that are not in the region it's really bad. But at the end of the day, you come in, you fear for yourself. You fear for your families. I think it completely makes sense what you're saying.
Especially in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the war, we didn't leave our house. It was scary. But even Danny Young's brother died in a mutzav, and they had a funeral, and I really wanted to go to the funeral. They even...
Stop. Danny Young is a friend of ours also who lived in our house and was in the army at the same time as us.
Yeah.
And Micha's talking about his brother.
He was in our Garim as well.
So I was going to his brother's funeral, and I took 2 steps outside, and I started hearing booms, and I was like, no way, I'm not doing this. And I ran back inside, and I was too scared to drive to Jerusalem to the funeral. I felt like a coward for not being able to get in my car and drive to Jerusalem. That was, it was a low point. I felt like cowardice.
Were you feeling scared of leaving your wife and child, or were you scared of your own life?
No, I was like, I don't know. I've had some PTSD-ish issues with surrounding Miluim for the past 12 years during a lot of major incursions into Gaza in 2014 and 2009. And I've had really bad experiences. Not really bad, but pretty bad. And I was really scared on October 7th. It was but it wasn't on October 7th. The funeral was, I think, October 9th or October 10th.
Micha, is this the first Gaza escalation where you've been a father? You've had it because 2014 is before your daughter was born.
Yeah. First of all, yeah, I guess it was the first escalation that I've been a father. That's for sure. But in whatever context, I was really scared, and I felt like ashamed of my fear. And I came back upstairs after like literally 5 minutes of going to my car, and I was like, I can't go. I just can't go. It's important to me. I would like to go, but I can't. I'm too scared. I don't want to go. And I felt like hopeless and like, what's going on here? Like everything I think seems to be wrong. And I was just like in a really bad place. I was like kind of crying all day and not able to work.
Yeah, October 8th was one of the hardest days of my life.
Yeah.
And for you specifically, I could imagine the magnitude of it, because it's so close to home for you, literally and figuratively, because you had just moved to Tel Aviv. You were a kibbutznik living on a border of hostile territory. And the stories that came out of Gaza were people like you living your just everyday life, having their breakfast cereal, wearing their pajamas, and demons coming in and just erasing everything you think is the world. Like that. I could see why that would just be crippling for you.
We had a plan to go to a music festival right in that exact same area the weekend after. We were supposed to go to Indy Negev, which is like extremely close to the Nova Music Festival, and like it. Yeah, exactly. You just look at the news and you're like, it could have easily been me. It could have been me so easy, and everyone there looks like me, and they have like a very similar, I don't know, way of living. Aesthetic as me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I can't pay attention to their story because it makes me too uneasy and scared. I have to like kind of ignore it in order to function. And I don't know how moral that is, Is it moral to not pay attention?
I'll tell you my view on it. I think that this is a grieving process that everyone's going through. And my view on grieving in general is that there is no right way. Some people plan. Some people are sitting there watching the news the whole time. Some people sit and cry. Some people go watch comedy to take their mind off it a bit. Some people have lots of ways to deal with grief in life in general. And whatever way that you deal with it naturally, whatever's coming out of you naturally, is the correct way. So if you want to sit there watching the news 24/7, and that was my way of doing it, and I know that some people that's overwhelming, and there's some people that just want to disconnect. I mean, Jeff, you spoke about it last time where you kind of taken a break. You have to. It was sort of overwhelming for you, and I think that's fine. That should be allowed. No one should judge anyone for how they're dealing with this horrific situation.
I have a pushback, if I may, respectfully, which is as far as myself goes, and I generalize this to other people as well, the way I look at the horrific stories and the horrific videos on Telegram that everyone can watch if you just go on X or Telegram or whatever, is it's a rabbit hole that has no ending, and as soon as you start, you can just keep digging and digging and find yourself like intoxicated. And so I have a kid, and I think it's a parent's responsibility to keep a sense of normalcy, even though the world's like burning down around you. You have to just keep going. You have to keep a schedule. You have to read books and go outside and go on bike rides, and so in that sense, like, I don't think it's responsible for a parent necessarily, not necessarily for someone that's not a parent, but to just like get drawn into the horror and just like be glued to Ynet all the time and not able to like function, So
yeah, I think it's probably different if you've got other responsibilities, and but I was talking about it more in general, yourself, how you deal with it.
I think you're both right. Yeah, I think what Micha's saying is part of what Dor is saying. Everyone grieves in your own way. Some people start a podcast to cope.
Oh,
I don't know who those people are.
I hope now is a good time to segue into.
Are you the host? Micha's the host now, and I'm all for it.
Oh, Jeff, sorry, I took away your control. Anyways,
no, be the host. I like that you're the host. You're not under my skin. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's just a very quick segue into why I'm not freaked out, because I'm not freaked out and I'm barely Jewish.
Okay. So if you were to title your podcast, what would you call it?
Yeah, I would call it Just a Normal Guy.
Sounds fascinating.
Even-keeled human.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not going to do an impression of you, Micha, this whole podcast. I'm going to really go so hard on not doing an impression, because I was...
Do it.
Oh, I was known for doing a Micha impression back in the day, and that probably got under your skin a little bit.
You're welcome.
I think you should, Jeff.
I don't think I'm a freaked out Jew because I don't have it anymore. I'm missing something with it. I had it. I could do it so well, but it was like...
Listen, let me tell you why I'm not freaked out, okay?
Okay, go ahead. Sorry for all that.
And no, it's cool. It's welcome. I'm not freaked out because so honestly, yes, I am a bit freaked out. Yes, but I choose not to even consider that because it makes me feel uncomfortable to like, the world kind of sucks now, and there's been a pandemic, and there's like a lot of violence all of a sudden, and wars, and there's so many deaths, and like all I think about really is just like my work, going climbing, like hanging out with my family, going hiking, what I'm gonna cook on Friday. I really don't pay attention to all the scary stuff because, it's not relevant.
That sounds more denial than not being freaked out.
Yeah, dude, you admitted that you're like, this is why I'm not a freaked out Jew. I am a freaked out Jew, but I'm pretending not to be.
Sure. I wouldn't call it denial. I would call it like I'm just it's not something I can even consider
Until it comes knocking at your door, like on October 7th when you were in denial until you couldn't be anymore.
Okay, I have a question for Dor and Jeff.
It's good because we're both here. So.
I'm sorry, Jeff, for being such a bad podcast host up until now. So I'm gonna make an effort to be more like commercially viable.
All right, here we are on One Even-Keeled Human. Let's hear your question.
Okay, my question is, do you guys think that okay, first the mainstream idea of the war is that Israel is going to destroy Hamas. And
I'm glad you asked this. Already because 2 episodes ago, Dor made the claim that we are gonna defeat Hamas, and it was like he said it so sure of himself. I just went oh good, yeah, I agreed. And then we got some flack from our listeners.
Yeah, okay.
And I think this is a good question for Dor specifically.
So Dor. Wait, before let me get to the question. I guess 2 questions. First, is it possible to defeat the idea of Hamas? But really, my question is it physically possible to actually defeat Hamas? Like, maybe they're all underground in bunkers, and maybe we're just shooting a bunch of people that are not actually terrorists, or maybe we're shooting half and half, or maybe there's 50,000 people underground that we just haven't found, and we might never find. So yeah.
Okay, so that was a complex thing, and let me go back to the beginning of saying, can we defeat Hamas? And when I think there's 2 ways to look at defeating Hamas. Hamas is a military organization, has military capabilities, but also it has civilian responsibilities. It manages Gaza, it manages the police, it manages the hospitals, it manages daily life there. So to defeat Hamas, you have to attack both of those things. But initially, you have to defeat their civilian capabilities. So post this war, Hamas will no longer be in charge of day-to-day life in Gaza. There'll be a different authority. So that's number one. It doesn't mean it disappears. Hamas, there will always be Hamas members. Somebody will go watch on the computer a video of Hamas and become a Hamas, become radicalized.
Like you're talking about white nationalists, in the same way.
Somebody will become
radicalized.
Somebody will become radicalized and they'll be Hamas member, but Hamas will no longer control the civilian apparatus of the state in Gaza. That's a fact.
How can you be sure?
Yeah, how can you be sure that will happen?
Yeah, let me just explain what I mean by defeating Hamas, and you can argue against it. Now, militarily, again, there will always be this person with a gun or a knife, so that will continue. However, their military control, their outposts, their headquarters, those will be destroyed completely. So they will not. They'll function as a normal terrorist organization that exists. So when I say defeating Hamas, it's basically taking their power to control both in a civilian way and a military way, that region, the Gaza Strip.
Dor, question.
Now okay.
Do you picture that after next year, next December, it will be safe for Israelis to enter into Gaza City and walk around as tourists?
No. I mean, it's not safe for you to enter now to go to Jenin or to go to Ramallah in the West Bank. We still control that. No. This is We're not in Europe. This is
Israel
not.
doesn't control Ramallah. Just want to say, Israel does not control Ramallah.
It has ability to go in militarily if it wants to. But the Israeli military will have freedom of movement to go whenever it wants, like it does in the West Bank, and go capture terrorists. Because terrorists will still exist. And their leaders will be targeted for the foreseeable future. To answer your question about are they all are we killing the wrong people, whatever? That's a more complicated thing. Obviously, civilians are being killed. This is war. However, I will say on the other hand that a lot of Hamas operatives are, they're not fighting in military equipment. They're fighting with civilian clothes. A lot of the hostages in the first days that they were, held in Gaza, they weren't held underground. They were moved underground eventually. Initially, they were held in regular apartments of people who are affiliated with Hamas. We're talking about women, older people. They're affiliated with Hamas. So you have to imagine Hamas, because of the nature of their control over the territory, they have the military aspect, which is probably all majority men, but they also have other operatives. So there has been collateral damage. Of course, there's lots of the horrible civilian casualties. We can see the numbers. But Hamas hides behind its civilians. That's what it does, and it's a tactic that they use, and it's very successful for them in making us look very bad, and making it very difficult to fight. But to go into your question on what are they all just hiding underground and we'll never catch them? Look, today the Hamas leadership, because they're cowardice, they're hiding underground, but they won't be able to stay there for long. Israel is finding the tunnels. It's destroying them. No other army has had to do with this kind of system. Israel is slowly destroying it. And again, they will eventually come up because you can't stay underground forever. And that's how we will destroy Hamas. That's what I mean by destroying Hamas. We will not fully destroy the ideology, but we will stop them having military and civilian control over that area.
What about, I don't think we've ever talked about the strategy of winning hearts and minds of the people of Gaza. How impossible of a task is that? Or is it completely possible that after this bloody, destructive war happens, there's a way that Israel can do things to help rebuild, to provide Palestinians in Gaza with the things that they're looking for, that they need, the things that Hamas came and provided for them. And that's how Hamas was able to get their claws into Gazan society, by providing them with any hope, with any schools, with any hospital. Like, is that a possibility? To win hearts and minds and to beat an ideology? Is that a good question, Micha, host?
Great question, Jeff. I like your initiative.
Thank you.
Just quickly to answer Dor with a follow-up question, and then I'll answer.
So my question's gone. My question's lost.
No, I'm going to answer your question.
All right.
Dor, I can imagine a scenario that would run counter to what you just said.
Sure.
Consider that we're gonna fight until, I don't know, August. Okay, we're gonna fight all year, and maybe 300 IDF soldiers will be killed in action. Maybe 500. I don't know. They're dying, and it's really scary to open up Ynet and see 10 soldiers died, 14 soldiers died.
I think besides the October 7th soldiers that died, I think 150 have died thus far in combat.
Yeah, it's been October, November, December. It's been 2 months, and 150 died. And as far as I know, we're supposed to continue until the summer. So if every 2 months 150 die, that's a lot. It's a bit terrifying.
Yes, 150 soldiers have died so far in the Gaza operation. This is in addition to what the people that died on October 7th, which is terribly tragic. I will say that the army is doing an incredible job. People thought that there would be much more casualties. I think the army is conducting itself. It's going very slowly and very carefully. I think the war will change to a different phase. I think what you are going to see in the future of Gaza, and you're right, Israel will not be in there, but let's explain what that means. They're not going to be in there. Israel will create, as I mentioned, a buffer zone, so no one can come to the fence. It'll just be an area, no man's land, where the army will be in there. Secondly, Israel will, up until August or whenever they decide to move to this new phase of war, there will be special units going in whenever they want. There'll be aerial bombardment whenever they want to specifically target Hamas and terrorists in areas which have not been dealt with yet. Beyond that, what's going to happen is that, if you want to take out Hamas to be the controlling power, who's going to control Gaza? And you're right, it's not going to be Israel. I believe it's going to be some kind of coalition. Again, you have to remember this war partially started, the timing of it was related to the Israeli-Saudi Arabia normalization. I think the normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia will happen, and they'll actually use Gaza as
Wait a
carrot.
minute. So this could tie into my hearts and mind thing, okay?
Okay, go ask your... What do you mean?
This could tie in. What if maybe this is a pie in the sky hope, and I know it's not. There's a million things standing in its way, but just throwing this out there. What if Israel and Saudi Arabia work together to make some sort of Saudi Emirates coalition that could help with all of their oil money, win the hearts and minds of the Palestinians, build up a good society for them. We come in there right now doing this terrible, dirty job of decapitating Hamas, and
so I think you were asking about like the hearts and minds. Can we deal with the hearts and minds of Palestinians? Let's not be naive. There's been a horrendous amount of civilian deaths. They're not going to be happy about this.
Okay, I'm not going to say we win the hearts and minds tomorrow, but like in many conflicts in the world where there's been horrific deaths and civilian casualties, and we're all Israeli citizens, and we would not have a problem making peace with the Palestinian people, even though October 7th happened and it was the most cruel.
I think there's a timing issue. I think in Israel now, and we can go more into this with Micha, but I think there is no appetite at the moment for this. I think there's no appetite on.
In the long run, can it be?
Let me address it, because I think time is an important element here. I think currently there's no appetite on both sides to really get to some kind of agreement and situation. I think in the long run, this is what's going to happen. Yes, and look, a lot of people are saying instead of winning hearts and minds, you're radicalizing people in Gaza. And I think that's 100% true.
I've heard that from a lot of people, yeah.
And people say, like, we shouldn't be in Gaza because we're actually radicalizing. I mean, I think October 7th, was the apogee, as I like to say, of radicalization. So it doesn't really matter how much you radicalize anymore, because they've already made the worst disaster in Israel's history. So I think that, yes, there will be radicalization. To Micha's point, you will never be able to remove Hamas fully, like the idea, because people will be radicalized by what happened. Longer term, with a international and Arab coalition, somebody will have to come and rebuild Gaza. Israel will facilitate some of that, will facilitate those organizations coming in, building it. Again, it's strategically important for the inner conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran. At the moment, Gaza is an Iranian outpost. Saudi Arabia wants to switch it into a Saudi Arabian outpost. It's important for them economically. It's important for the region, for them to control that. So I think as part of normalization, and we're not talking about, this will be done by August. We're talking about, 3 years. This is slowly has to happen in terms of the psyche of Israelis and psyches of the Palestinians. This is going to take a lot of time, and, this region changes on a weekly basis. But that's, I believe, what's going to happen. And it's going to be easier for Saudi Arabia to sell normalization with Israel to its people and the other Arab countries, because they'll say, yeah, we're going to normalize with Israel, but really we're going to go and help the Palestinians and build up Gaza.
Interesting. And I hope they do. I hope they do build up Gaza, and I hope Gaza does thrive and become the Singapore of the Levant. Like, I hope it all happens.
I have a different answer to your hearts and minds. Maybe a pushback, some would say. So up until October 6th, I had this opinion that the Palestinians in Gaza are essentially Western in a way that they want a good life. I was like, come on, they're people. They have kids. They have jobs. They go to their work and take their kids to, I don't know, go to ballet or whatever after school or whatever their kids like to do. Like, at the end of the day, they just want to live and work and eat food with their family. Like, that was my main idea. And now, since October 7th, I've been like watching a lot of YouTube. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I've like been addicted to this guy named Corey Schuster. If you guys have heard of him, he goes around Israel and Palestine and asks random people questions of how they feel about different topics. Okay. And I've been reading polls and listening to a lot of NPR and radio and talk shows and blah, blah, blah. And I've come to the conclusion that there's a fundamental difference in culture between the Western and the Eastern or the Middle Eastern. And I don't think the majority of Palestinians want peace. I think they want to fight. I think they feel like they can win eventually. And I feel like they have a different concept of time. The way they think about time is like in hundreds of years. They're like, maybe we won't win now, but we'll win in hundreds of years. And they think that Palestine is all theirs, like all of Israel. That's what they want, I think. So, in my opinion,
I think part of what you're saying has an element of like jihadi martyrdom in it, that life is a blip and death is the true paradise. And I think that's like actually believed, not just abstract thought, but like whatever happens now, we'll keep fighting this for our holy cause, and in death we'll become martyrs. And I think that plays an element that is so hard for us to grasp.
I think, Jeff, you're 100% right that there is a problem, which I've noticed in the coverage, that, you know, when and it's, you know, horribly sad, and you can say to me, why are you judging someone else? But when I see parents losing kids in Gaza, which is horrific, they're like, the language that they use is, oh, my kid's been martyred. The ideology there, that there's a higher purpose. I mean, I understand that you need to believe there's a higher purpose for your child. I understand that that's what keeps you going. But that's so... It kind of like dehumanizes the situation.
Yeah. We've heard a lot of Palestinians say that Jews celebrate life and Palestinians celebrate death. And it's not just like something to scare us. It's actually telling us a big aspect of culture.
I don't want to stereotype everyone and say that that's what everyone believes. I have heard that in protests on the street. And going back to Micha, I think that he's right. There are a lot of people that look at this as, you know, we've got 100 years. We've got 200 years. We'll win eventually. Under that, like, first of all, I think that, you know, the quintessential human power is hope. And you hope things will change. And I think Golda Meir said this, that there's a famous interview by the BBC, or a British guy, that interviewed her, and they said, oh, you know, eventually they're going to win, you know, and they think in 100, 200 years. Right. And her response was, so you're telling me nothing will change? Nothing is going to change in 100 years? And her response was, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think things will change, and therefore we'll have a new reality.
And have they changed, Dor? Have they changed?
Well, hold on. If we look at 1948, would anyone in 1948 imagine that we would have peace with Egypt or Jordan? Let's go back 10 years. Did you believe that you would be able to, as an Israeli person, go to Dubai or be talking about Saudi Arabia normalizing relations with Israel? No. So, things can change all the time, for positive and negative. I agree with you, Micha, that there is a fundamental issue here. And again, these people have been educated for years, that, you know, and this is why the peace process has failed, by the way, because they didn't want to stop the struggle. They believe that all the land is theirs. Either this massive war with Gaza basically shakes Israel's society and shakes Palestinian society to saying, look, time to chart a new path, or we'll continue fighting. And the reality is, and this, I say this to Israelis and to Palestinians, we're not going to get rid of them, and we're not going to get rid of them. Both people are going to be in this region. There's nothing you could do about it. now find a way to do it?
They are they're tribal. They live in big family
Not
units.
all of them, Micha. Let's not stereotype everyone.
I'm sorry, but they're a tribal culture. Their culture is tribal. They have tribal weddings. They have their whole life cycle is it's tribal. It's not bad. It's different than Western. I know it's really unpopular to talk about in the West that Palestinians have a different culture than the West. I think people would be horrified by that suggestion. How dare you call them different? You're dehumanizing. You're like, it's racist. It's based on a race. No, there's a cultural differences between different cultures, and I think that's acceptable to talk about. And I think that we saw this in the West Bank, that there's the way that Arabs in the West Bank and Gaza live is in chamulot. There's big families, and they all have the same last name in a whole big city, and they have a sort of a tribal culture where
I think
this is true.
Micha.
Let Micha finish. He's gelling. Go.
The way that the way that Arab cultures in the West Bank and Gaza function is that there is like common knowledge and everyone falls in line to it. I don't think there's so much resistance towards the Hamas, be it because they're violent and everyone's scared, or because they feel like the Hamas is the only people doing fighting against the Israelis, and they feel like the Israelis have conquered their land and humiliated them and are terrible. So I think like everyone's kind of on the same page. Like they all want to keep fighting. That's what I think. I don't think there are hearts and minds over there. Everyone wants to fight, I think.
Let me so I didn't mean to make you sound like, stereotypical racist. I think that you're 100% right. We talk about all the time then like the extreme left in America and Europe and their view of Israel and the conflict. And they're like, why can't we just have one democratic free state? And that's, I think there is a difference. I think you're right. I think there is a fundamental difference in the way the Middle East works. I mean, look, most of the Middle East is dictatorships. They don't work with democracy.
What do you mean most?
Then,
it's all dictatorship.
Yeah, I'm saying they tried democracy ish, and then like so Egypt, they tried democracy, and then they got the Muslim Brotherhood, and then they're like, okay, back to the dictatorship.
Yeah.
The Palestinians tried democracy. Oh, we elected them. Oh well, back to dictatorship. Hamas took over Gaza. Back to dictatorship. I think there is definitely a difference. That's why Israel deals with Arabs differently, and that's why it gets the international community has a go at Israel. Like, why are you not doing this more in the European style, where we can just sit and talk? But the reality is, there's different mentality. This is a different region, and part of the problem is that the West puts its own mentality and beliefs and like pushing democracy into a region that like we don't have the same values as you. Our values are not worse than yours. We're just different.
Yeah.
So treat us in the way that is more relevant to how we think and not how you think. And that's the reality of the situation. In terms of winning hearts and minds, again, I can put it down to there has been changes. There's been changes in Israeli Arabs inside of Israel in this conflict compared to the other conflict. There's been changes in peace deals that Israel has managed to do. There's been a change in Saudi Arabia, which we don't have an active war with, but they've changed their stance. They're saying we now are going to go with normalization with Israel because we're tired of war. We're tired of this conflict. I think change can happen with the Palestinians, with the narrative of the grievance that they've had for many years, the sharing of the land. I think that's going to take a long time. And just like they think they have a long time, I'm hopeful that we have a long time to change that too, because we're not going anywhere. And neither are they.
That was lively. Let's end it here. Micha, let's give you the mic again. Let's tap into nostalgia, talk about a memory from me and Dor and you back in the day, and then we'll end it on just like being happy. And then
let me dive deep into despair once more. And something that kind of rocked my world. It's small, but it was weird. I'll just say it really fast, and you can edit it back into the question because we kind of skipped over that question.
Great, sounds fun.
That's what you do for a living. Just do that.
I don't make money from this podcast. This eats into my living making.
It's an investment, Jeff. Okay. Anyways, so I was walking back home from Gone with my daughter, like the month ER, and
Gone is kindergarten.
And she's always asking me, Micha, or she says,
Start that again, Micha. Start it again.
Why?
Start again.
Why?
Because just make it condensed, for the love of God.
I know. I'm
just say like I was walking with my daughter.
I said as we started this this
you don't have to explain her name.
That I can't
you don't
talk.
Have to explain her name.
I just can't talk anymore. Now I work with computers. Now that's all I can do. Okay. Anyway, so
all right, start again.
So again, I was walking with my daughter home from kindergarten, and a side note, my daughter is always asking me what we're supposed to do if there is a siren, and she asks this more than every day. She'll ask it every time we're outside, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, which is sad, honestly, that she's scared about it. She thinks about it even. So we're riding our bikes back home from kindergarten, and we hear a siren. So I rush her. We throw our bikes into the bushes. We run into the bomb shelter. We were there within 10 seconds. It was a house, not our house. We stayed in the bomb shelter for around 10 minutes. It was a group of like 12 or 15 people, all strangers. No one was talking. Everyone was just basically quiet and looking at each other. And we were just waiting. And then we got out, we rode bikes, and we continued on as if nothing had happened. The builders continued building. The buses were driving. The cars were driving. And then we went to a pizza restaurant. It was so surreal that a rocket flew into our city, and we just continued the day. It was just like, nowadays rocket sirens are like normalcy. So it's just weird.
Isn't that the reality of like the Israeli life?
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. That's how it is. You come home from kindergarten, you go through a rocket attack, and then you go to a pizza restaurant, and then you continue to the climbing wall. It's just like, what's going on here? What kind of life is this? It's just crazy.
It's incredible. It's incredible to think about that. And I want to talk more in depth about the bomb shelters, about you and your daughter, but my AirPods are running out of battery. And I'm sorry. Oh my God. All I wanted to talk about was you and your daughter and the bomb shelters. But now we have to sign off, okay? Micha, can we do this again soon with you and hear about the bomb shelters?
I'm free on Monday nights.
Okay. Dor, we can do Mondays with Micha. But for now...
But if I'm a recurring guest, we're going to have to change the name of the podcast. Ergo, I'm not... what's the word? I'm not...
We were 2 freaked out Jews and 1 even-keeled Homo sapien.
2 freaked out Jews and 1 not freaked out and not so Jew.
Micha, the episode hasn't even gone out and you're already taking control.
I know. That's why I'm worried about him like coming in here and like trying to occupy our territory.
Oh, so typical Israeli.
Yeah.
Even though I'd call it Dor more Israeli than me.
Anyways, I always end this with a Laila Tov Dor, Laila Tov Micha.
You always end with the Laila Tov Micha.
And you're under my skin. All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
My name's Jeff. I'm calling in from California.
My name's Dor, and I'm joining you from London.
Out of 16 million, we are 2.
2 freaked out Jews.